I want you to think about this for a moment. You know deep down something isn't quite right about the world that you live in. You've been lied to your whole life. All right? What's the reality? What's the truth? In simple terms. Short and sweet. You're a slave who's been born into a global human farm, a human slave system, which covers the whole planet. All of the governments in the world are colluding and working together to run a human farm, a human slave system across the entire planet. You were born into it, your parents were born into it, their parents were born into it. It's been going on for a couple of 100 years, maybe longer. In this slave system, people will often say things like what you see on the screen here: no money, no job, no car, and nowhere to live. What does that actually say in reality? No slave tokens, no slave labor, no slave tram, and no prison cell. So, in the Matrix slave system that you've been born into, and your parents were born into it, your grandparents were born into it, and they've all been slaves their entire lives. You've been a slave your entire life in a global slave system. In the slave system, they have a thing called money. Yeah, you've heard of money before, and if you don't have it, oh no, look out, like it's a bad thing and all. Well, in the real world, there's no such thing as money. It's slave tokens. Slave tokens that you're given by slave masters as slaves in the slave system, like in a prison where you get buy-ups. So prisoners in prison, they have bank accounts and all this, and they're allowed to buy like an extra can of tuna or whatever it is. You get to go to the shopping centre. And then you've got words like job. What's that? That's obviously slave labour. What's a car? A car is your slave tram or your slave vehicle, which you've been allotted in order for you to go to your slave labor, your work site, so you can be a good slave and work for the slave masters. So that's why you've been given the opportunity, the so-called freedom, to own a car, so you can be a better slave. And nowhere to live, having a house, owning a home or a house within this slave system. Like, find me any other animal that needs a house or to pay rent or mortgage, or, you know, they have an address. Oh, that's right. You only have addresses and numbers on your house when they're prison cells. You've got cell 1, you've got cell 2, you've got A block, you've got B block, you've got C block in the prison. That's why you've got suburb 1 here, you've got this town here, you've got that town there. And on this street, you've got number 1 house, you've got number 2 house, you've got number 3 house. And all your houses are numbered and they have addresses. Why? Because they're called prison cells. Otherwise, your house wouldn't have a fucking number. It wouldn't be in a grid system on a block. Like they have blocks, you know, in prison you have blocks. You have the A block, you have the B block, the C block. What do they call the suburbs? The big rectangle suburbs that they build the houses, your houses in, and they number all the houses. Oh, that's right, they call it a block. Because it's a free-range prison across the entire planet. And the main reason you should really consider what I'm saying here is because all of this is coming out. The whole world is going to know the truth. And one of the number one things that the slave masters continuously do is they abduct and rape millions of children every year. So the number one thing that the slave masters are doing at the moment, the number one evil, they're abducting and raping, molesting, sexually abusing millions of children worldwide every year. That's why they have us farmed in this global system. That's why you go to work and you pay tax. That's why you have a number on your house and you live on a block in a prison cell. That's why you own a car, so you can be a more efficient slave and work to your job site to do your slave labor, so you can pay your taxes to the slave elites, the slave masters, right? So that they can continue to abduct and rape and child molest and sexually abuse millions of children annually. Because that's what they're doing on this planet with this global slave system. The slave masters are running a global human farm to farm human children that they can sexually abuse and rape. And they do all kinds of other evil things as well, even more fucked up than that. So that's why you pay taxes, that's why you go to work, that's why you have money and a job and a car and somewhere to live. Because that's your slave tokens, your slave labor, slave tram or vehicle to go to be a more efficient slave, and your prison cell. Your cell is what you call your house. But you're an inmate in a cell. And you do slave labor. And then you're given slave tokens, so you have buy-ups in this prison system. And that's what you call money in your bank account. So, and again, all of this is going to come out and it's going to be revealed for the whole world. Everyone's going to know. And the children aren't going to be continually raped and molested, because it's all going to come to an end. And there's going to be retribution and justice and revenge on those who are responsible. So, do you want to continue living and being a part of this system and being a part of those who are responsible and perpetuating this human farm, which it's one of its primary purposes? So one of the primary purposes, you went to school and you learnt to whatever skills you have to go to work and do the job you do. The primary reason, the number one reason, is so the slave masters who run the global human slave farm can continue to rape children that they farm all over the planet. So do you want to continue to do that, knowing that it's all going to be revealed and it's all going to come out and everyone's going to know that we all know it's being revealed? We all know that this information isn't going to stay secret forever. You can't just hide millions of children that disappear, you know? You can't just sweep that under the rug and expect people just to forget about millions and millions of children disappearing in this, child trafficking rings. Even though the elites, Hollywood, currently are trying to suppress this information because they don't want it coming out because they're all a part of it. And they've been covering it up for years. They can try their hardest, but it's not going to work. It's all going to be revealed. And I don't know, what do you want to tell your children? When the next few generations that come into this world, either the children today or the children being born today or their children, when you're an old man or an old woman and you're looking at your grandchild or your great-grandchild, do you want to tell them that you decided to help protect them, or that you decided because you wanted to watch Netflix and you're an alcoholic or you're a junkie or something, that you decided it'd be better to actually just continue the slave system, which has a sole purpose of perpetuating child trafficking and the rape of innocent children? Are you going to look at your grandchild in the eyes or your children in the eyes and tell them that you decided to continue to go to work and be a part of this slave system? Why? Because you were scared? Because, I don't know, you're too lazy to learn how to grow your own food or something? Are you going to look your own grandchild in the eyes and tell them you were too lazy to learn how to grow food and live free, independent of this slave system, so you thought it would be better off to just be an alcoholic and let them grow up in a slave system that rapes children? Or are you going to look at your grandchildren in the eyes and say, I was one of the heroes that saved humanity and stopped this evil and the victimization of innocent children across the entire planet? Because it's going to be those next generations that are going to be the judges of your life and your actions and your decisions. So think about the future and think about what you're doing now today, because you're responsible for the future when it arrives. And you're going to have to look at those grandchildren or the children in the eyes. Whether you tell them the truth or not, you're going to have to know that truth in your own heart. And God's going to know it. And then you're going to have final judgment when you cross over. So you're going to be judged by the children, the next generations. And then you're going to be judged in the afterlife as well. So you have the choice. Do you want your own grandchildren to spit on your graves and think you're disgusting, weak pieces of shit, and then for you to rot in hell because God's going to spit on you as well and throw your soul straight into hell in the pits, flaming pits, because you're weak and you chose yourself over the children? Or are you going to make the right choice? You're going to be a real man or a real woman and choose the children over yourself and your own greedy comforts and fears? The choice is yours.